Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to today's lesson. My name's Wes. This is Interactive English, and if this is your first time here, the channel, it's all about helping you practice and improve your English skills, and especially if this is your first time here, please let me know, say hello, write your name, tell me where you're from in the chat or in the comments if you happen to be watching this later. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I guess it's more of a grammar lesson that we're going to talk about because this lesson, well, it's all about one word, and that word is of. All right. It's a preposition, and according to Oxford English Corpus, it is the fourth most common word in the English language. So this is a word that you are going to read all of the time. You are going to hear it all of the time. And if you're having a conversation, you are probably going to be using this word quite often. So it is a very important word, which is part of the reason why I put the little crown on top of. It is one of the kings of English, or maybe you could say of is the queen of English, either one. So hello, I just want to give some shout outs. Hello to Gibson, Aloisa, Aiden, good to see you. Lolly, welcome. Mary, Alana, Turan, Michelle, Leonardo, thank you guys for joining me. So today's lesson, it is very important because, like I told you, this is a very common word. It's a very common preposition. Now, before we start talking about this, I want you to know that I'm going to go through and talk about specific times when you would use this preposition, and I give you some examples. Now, you could think of these as rules, but instead, I think that if you really want to learn prepositions and improve your English, I think this is a good way to practice and kind of familiarize yourself with certain times when you should use this word. But overall, I think the absolute best way to learn prepositions is to do more reading, more listening, and get more exposure to the language and try to learn them naturally, because you will start to absorb this information. The more you read, the more you listen, and then the next time you have a conversation, you are going to start using these prepositions correctly. Of course, I think it's okay if you want to learn some rules, like you use the preposition in when talking about certain parts of the day, in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. I think that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly okay. But in general, more reading, more listening, I think that helps. And again, you're going to get that today because we're going to talk all about these different times when you should use of. And I would encourage you to participate as we go through these certain, rules, if you will. I try to write some sentences, write them in the chat, practice your English skills. I always encourage you guys to practice as much as you can. So let's start with the first one. So you would use of if you are showing possession or origin. And origin is basically just saying where something comes from. For example, if somebody were to say a friend of mine, all right, that's more a possession, a friend of mine, or like origin, the colors of the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow. Now let's get a little more advanced, all right, and talk about that first one, a friend of mine, because you might be thinking, why not say my friend? So you could say Wes is my friend or Wes is a friend of mine. Both of them have the same meaning. It means the exact same thing. Now, one slight difference, and this is I think it's my opinion as to how it might be slightly different, is that I think when you say my friend and you put that adjective pronoun before friend, my friend, that possessive pronoun, sorry, I think it shows that you have really a closer relationship. If you say a friend of mine, it might be a little bit of a looser relationship. But again, either one is okay. But to give you an example, I think this is where somebody might ask a question. Maybe they would say, hey, is he a friend of yours? Maybe they're mad at this person. They're like, wait, is this your friend? Is he a friend of yours or is she a friend of yours? And in that case, they're using of, I think in part because you're leaving it open to have a looser relationship. But that's one little difference between saying my friend or a friend of mine. But in general, both of them are perfectly okay. Now, you would also use of if you are using it after words expressing an amount or a number. So I want to start with that last one. 20 kilos of Nutella. My wife, she loves Nutella. And I'm sure she wishes she could have 20 kilos of Nutella. I also enjoy it. So I would ask you, what would you like to have 20 kilos of? Or what would you like to have any amount of? And just write that in the chat or write that in the comments and practice using of when talking about an amount. 20 kilos of Nutella. 20 pounds of something. So it depends whether you're using the metric system or not, but after any amount or number, you would use of. 20 kilos of something. Or if you're talking about just expressing that number, thousands of people. Or even when we're using words like most or many. Most of us. That is a common expression that you may hear. And I'm trying to, as examples, I will try to use some more common expressions that you're going to hear with of, like, oh, most of us. So excellent. Lolly would like 20 kilos of pizza. I would also enjoy 20 kilos of pizza, especially pepperoni pizza. Sleepwalker, 3 kilos of ice cream. Excellent. Yes, told you that thousands of times. Yes, I try to tell you guys things as much as I can and repeat them often, again and again and again. It's a good way to remember things. Repetition is important. So let's look at 20 kilos of sushi. Excellent. 4 cups of coffee. Great example, Gladys. That's another one. And I'm actually getting to that one right now because we use of when talking about like quantifiers, like that example that I just read. 4 cups of coffee. When you have certain nouns that are non-count, you cannot count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like rice, that first one. You would use a quantifier or a container, either one. So you could say a bag of rice or a box of chocolates. I could say that this is my class of learners. You guys are all learning English, so you could use a quantifier or container when talking about these non-count nouns. And that is another common, that is a very common example as when you would use of, like a bag of rice, a cup of coffee, a liter of milk. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you guys for providing these examples. So I hope that even if you're watching this later, I hope people continue to read the chat, because this is a great way for you guys to help teach each other and give some examples. So we also use of when talking about, well, expressions that are showing the position of something. So if you're trying to point something out and say, well, where something is, and say, oh, it's at the top of his head. Or you might say something is on the back of your shirt. You don't know what it is. It's on the back of your shirt. That is the position. Or like a very common one, if you're talking about the line and you need to get to the front of the line. Or maybe if you arrive late and somebody could tell you like, oh, you got to go to the back of the line, the position of where something is. And you're talking about the position in relation to this other thing, like the top of your head or the back of your shirt. That is what you're talking about. So, excellent. Yes, this is the class of interactive English. You could say, yes, I'm right in front of you. Yeah, that's very true. Right now, you guys are in front of me, and I am in front of all of you. So when you're talking about position, another example of when you use of. You are also going to use of to describe a characteristic. So in this case, let me just, and then you can give me an example. The look of a criminal, the sound of an angel, the personality of a tree. So instead of telling somebody, you could say, you have the look of a criminal. You're describing this, the way they look, their characteristic. You could also say, you look like a criminal. And again, if you are, the difference between those, if somebody says, oh, you look like a criminal, I think in that case, the verb is one of the main parts of that statement. The look is what you're focusing on. In this case, if you change it to a noun and talk about the look, you have the look of a criminal. In that case, I think you're highlighting criminal a little bit more. Like, oh, you have the look of a criminal. Instead of saying you sound like an angel, you have the sound of an angel. Your song, your music, oh, it's the sound of an angel. You're kind of highlighting that noun, the angel. So again, you can tell me, what do I have? I have the look of what? Practice. Write it down. The look of something. And the last one, which somebody was asking, personality of a tree. So in this case, I think when people use it in this sense, they often use it to say something negative about another person. And it's kind of a way of insulting somebody. And you don't have to say tree. You could say that, oh, this person, they have the personality of a tree. Kind of like trying to say that this person is boring, that they're not very active and they're not fun to be around. But you might hear somebody say this, that, oh, if they want to make fun of or say something bad about this person, oh, they have the personality of something else that they think is very boring. So in that last example, it's kind of a way to kind of insult somebody and say something bad about them, in case you're wondering. Somebody said, Wes, you sound like an angel. I have the sound of an angel. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I have the look of an officer. Okay. All right. I have the look of a doctor. Really? All right. I guess I'll take that as a compliment. I hope doctors, they look friendly. They look nice. So again, in this case, to describe a characteristic, you would use of. You're also going to use it if you refer to a particular date, and this is a very common example as to when you would use this preposition. So for the first one, the 12th of November. That is a very important date. That is a very important date. Can you guess? Guess what day that is? The 12th of November. But we're referring to that particular date. You're going to use of. The 4th of July. That is a holiday in the United States. That is when they celebrate Independence Day. It is the 4th of July. Or if you're referring to a part of the month. For example, like that last one when I talked about the end of the month, or the beginning of the month, the middle of the month. That is more of a time period, but you are also going to refer to this moment. So yes, you could say today is the 23rd, remember the ordinal number, 23rd of May. That is today's date. Excellent, great example. The 23rd of May, but I am a little more partial. I really like the 12th of November. That's a that's a great day. Yes. Somebody, the 12th of November. That's my birthday, obviously. Kieran, it's your birthday today. Happy birthday, Kieran. Excellent. So, if you're just joining us, we're talking about different times when you would use the preposition of, because of, it is a very common word, and I would say try not to think of these. These are examples that hopefully they're easy to follow. And you can see this like, oh yes, when talking about dates, I know that, I understand it. So try not to think like you have to memorize these different rules, but just read, follow along, listen. That I think is by far the best way to learn these prepositions. So let's see, when you would also use of when talking about saying that something is made of something or having something. For example, you say, "Oh, like my necklace is made of gold. It's made of this thing, this metal." Or I don't know. I just put that in there. I thought of the story that J.R. I can't even think of, Lord of the Rings, and they're talking about Mordor, the land of fire. All right, it's having this thing, the land of fire. Or you could say a woman of great beauty. Again, I think probably a more common way to say this would be just to describe somebody and say, "Oh, she is a beautiful woman." But this is another way I think that you can, it means the same thing, but it allows you, I think, to be a little more colorful with language and use it in a variety of ways. So you could refer to somebody using of, like a woman of great beauty. She has great beauty. Let's look at the next one. So we're going to use of when you would connect adjectives or verbs with certain nouns. Now, this one is extremely common, and there is no general rule, except I'm just kind of making the statement. Again, this is when I think you really just need more reading, and you start to see these adjectives that are followed by the preposition. For example, you are tired of doing something. "Oh, I'm tired of running." Or maybe you're saying, "Oh, I'm tired of learning English." I don't know. I hope not. But you are tired of doing something. And in that case, you're going to follow that adjective with the preposition of. And there are many adjectives and verbs that are like this. You could say, again, very common, you are afraid of something. I am a little afraid of spiders. I have just a little bit of arachnophobia. Or you could be accused of a crime, or as a verb, to accuse someone of some crime. Or maybe you could say that you are fond of something or fond of someone. So in this case, there are many adjectives and verbs out there that you are going to follow with the preposition of, and other examples will fall in this category. So this is a very broad category, but it's still important to know. So I'm tired of this quarantine. That's a good example. Excellent. I think many people are there. You are full of enjoyment. All right. Yeah, actually, I got that one's coming up a little later too. Perfect. Sick and tired of politics. Excellent example. Thank you, Aiden. Excellent. The next one, let's talk about, we use them after adjectives that judge a person's behavior. So this could also fall under the last one that we just talked about. Certain adjectives, and you follow them, follow these adjectives or verbs with the preposition of. But in this case, it's specifically talking about you are judging the way that somebody acts or the way they behave. And this is a very common expression. If somebody does something nice, you might say, "Wow, that's so thoughtful of you." So that is a great expression to learn if you want to thank someone and you want to show some appreciation. You could say, that's so thoughtful of you. Great expression using of. You're judging their behavior. They are thoughtful. Or if somebody's not very nice and you want to say that they're rude, you could say, "That's rude of you." It's rude of you to do something. All right. You're saying that this person's behavior. It's rude of him, it's rude of her, so you're talking about that person. Or that last expression, again, I wanted to combine that because that adverb and adjective, awfully nice, that is a common collocation. Those words are frequently used together, and you could say that it is awfully nice of you. Again, if you're just showing appreciation, you could say, "Wow, that's awfully nice of you." You guys, you enjoy these lessons? You hit that like button. I could say, "Wow, that's awfully nice of you to hit that like button. I really appreciate it. I think it's very thoughtful of you." Okay. I'm not going to say it's rude of you if you don't. It's okay. That's perfectly fine. But just to give you some examples of when you would use it in this way. And those are some good ones. Thoughtful of you, awfully nice of you. maybe throw down some of those examples. I like that. If you want to say it's awfully nice of someone to do what, all right? Let's look about the next one is you would use the preposition of when you're talking about the word about something, or it's relating to something. So let's look at these examples. Again, I wanted to throw in a common expression. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the phrase, speak of the devil. So what this means is an expression that when you are talking about another person and then that person suddenly appears, that's when you could use this expression and say, oh, speak of the devil, this person just arrived, we were just talking about you. Or you could use it when you're talking about about this person and you'd say, well, speaking of Wes, and then you would give some information about me or something that you know. Speaking of this person. But I want to teach you that common expression. Speak of the devil. I'm going to write it down for you and throw it in the chat. It's an expression so that when talking, so it's kind of saying a person, when talking about a person, they suddenly appear. Excellent. And the other one, when you want to give an example of relating to something else, like maybe you're talking about the advantage of something. The advantage that is related to learning English is this, the advantage of learning English, or the disadvantage of something. So in that case, I think those are very common expressions that you would use of the advantage of something or the disadvantage of something. So in that case, it's more of or relating to. Think of the devil, or the devil is here. All right. Yeah. So again, when you say speak of the devil, it's not really something mean, like the devil, like a bad person, just a expression that somebody is here. Then we would use of if you want to say that is or that are. So instead of saying you're talking about the issue of something, the issue that is poverty, but instead of saying that is, we're saying the issue of poverty. So in this case, of takes the place of that is or that are. The issue of poverty. The difficulty of learning English. At the age of 21. So in this case, at the age of 21, I could say, yeah, people can drink. People can drink alcohol in the United States. I know it's a little later in the US. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. So let's look at the next part. We also use of when you are saying that something is done to this other thing or group. For example, this is a great example at the beginning. Well, it's not a good thing. The destruction of the rainforest. The destruction done to the rainforest. So you would use it when you want to say that something is done to something else. The destruction of the rainforest, the oppression of minorities, the firing of employees. So in all of those instances, you could kind of think of as something is done to something else or someone else. Excellent. Ario, thank you. Great class. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Maria, yes, you enjoy this class. I'm glad. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this lesson. That's all about one word. It's really just this one word, but it's a very important word. Let's continue that you would use of if you want to say something or someone is you have felt or experienced by someone else. And in this case, I just used the word others. So you're talking about you want to earn the respect of others. You want to earn the respect of your colleagues, or you want to earn the respect of your boss. So that's a common phrase that you would use it to earn the respect of someone else. Or in this case, if you're talking about somebody who is feeling something like the suffering of others. The suffering of others, another example when you would use of. Again, let's keep moving along right here. When comparing. Now, I think, not always, but I think of superlatives for the most part. You're using these superlatives. Superlatives is when that's when you are comparing three or more things. You're basically comparing everything. In which case, you're talking about the best of all, the worst of all. So those are some common phrases that you may hear if you want to describe something and say, wow, it's the best of all. Or maybe it is the worst of all. You're going to use of. Or when comparing, like making a comparison. Of all the YouTube teachers, then you could say something. Of all the YouTube teachers, Wes is the best. I don't know. No, all right. I want to be a little more humble, okay? So there are actually many great YouTube teachers out there, and I hope that you guys, get a little variety. Go check out everybody. It's great. I think there's so many of us that do things a little differently. I don't think one person is the best. I think everybody just has different styles and different lessons. So let's look at the next part. Right here, when saying time. Now, this is very American. I'm not going to say that I don't know if this is common in British English. I don't really think so. And I don't think it's not overwhelmingly common in the US, but when talking about time, people might use the word of and say something like it's 5 of 5. And if you say a 5 of 5, it means it's 5 minutes before the top of this hour. So 5 of 5 is really 4:55. Or maybe you might say it's 10 minutes of 2, in which case it's 1:50. It's 10 minutes before 2. So in this case, of means like before. So again, this is more, I think, common in the United States. But even still, I don't really use this when talking about time. I don't use it often, but it's something that you may hear if you are living in the U.S. or traveling to the U.S. or maybe even watching a TV show or movie and somebody says the time. If they say of, they're talking about it's before this. And typically they're going to use it when talking about just before, like you'd use it with minutes of like 5 or 10, maybe 20, but really just those two, mostly with 5 or 10, like, oh, it's 5 of 3. You're not going to use it with talking about like, oh, it's 30 minutes before this time. That's a little strange. So if you do hear this, most often people are going to use it when talking about 5 minutes or 10 minutes before this time. I hope that makes sense. All right. The next time that you use one, it's 1 minute of 7. Okay, good example. You could say that. Yes, it's a minute of 7. But it does work. Most commonly people would talk about 5-10 minutes, and it's a very informal, casual expression. You are also going to use of if somebody wants to express loss, or they're showing some loss that they are suffering or enduring. Maybe you are deprived of something, that you cannot have this thing, and you might be deprived of TV. Right now, many people, somebody was saying they were sick and tired of this quarantine. Right now, many people are deprived of going outside and just doing normal activities. We are deprived of this. It's a way of expressing loss. Or you could use it and say you were robbed of something. You were robbed of money, or you could use it when talking about like you were robbed of maybe like, oh, I was robbed of this new job, that you didn't get the job. You lost out on it, and you're saying, oh, I was robbed of this new position. I should have got it. It was mine. So it doesn't always have to refer to money in that case. But those are some common expressions. You were deprived of something, or you were robbed of something. And then we could use it with some certain idiomatic expressions as well. If somebody were to say something like, I'm a man of my word. If somebody uses this expression, it means that you are a person that does what they say. You do the things that you say you will do. And if you're asking somebody to trust you, Say, believe me, you can trust me. I'll do what I say I'm going to do. I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of my word. There will be a new video lesson for you guys this next Tuesday. I promise. Believe me, I'm a man of my word. You could use it also, I think you could say a woman of my word too. If you're a woman, that's perfectly fine. But with that idiomatic expression, you would use of or in the nick of time. And if somebody says, if you don't know what this means, in the nick of time, it means that you need to accomplish something and it's getting very close to the end, and at the last minute, you succeed. You accomplish your goal. And you could say that we made it in the nick of time. So perhaps you have to get to some kind of meeting or an appointment, and you get there 5 minutes of 7 o'clock, right before then. Like, oh, I made it in the nick of time, right at the last minute. I think a good way to think of this idiom is thinking about sports. If somebody's playing a sports game and they're running out of time, and then one of the teams scores in the nick of time. They score in the nick of time. Hello, Surey. How are you? Thank you. Good to hear from you. So these are all different kind of rules guidelines, I would say, that you can follow when to use this word, when to use the word of, because it is such an important word, and I hope this helps a little bit. I do want to let you guys know, if you guys like what we do and want to show us some love, you can, there we go, I'll get in the frame. Support Interactive English. We have channel memberships, Patreon, there are some cool rewards, and there are links to that down below in the description if you want to check that out. So again, this is a very common preposition. I hope that this was easy to follow and understand, because I don't expect you to memorize all of these different rules that I've talked about today. I would encourage you to get more reading, more listening. You're going to see this word being used a lot, and then you're going to start to understand it naturally, especially when talking about those adjectives that are followed by the preposition of. Some are very common. You're tired of something, you're afraid of something, you're scared of something. But other ones, they can be a little trickier. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. If you did, hit that like button down below. Always write to me in the comments, because I just love hearing from you. And just to give some shout outs, thank you for joining me, Aiden, Dimitri. I appear in the nick of time. Yeah, I do. Sometimes I get there right at the last minute and I'm like, I made it just in the nick of time. Sleepwalker, Mary, thank you guys for being here. Eloisa, Ram, Surey. Great to see you. Punam, Shalu, Abdurrahman, Jesus, I can't mention it. Jesuito? Jesus, I couldn't see that name, it went away. But thank you. Ario, Nekla, Rita, Francisco, Gertrudis. Thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys next time. So long.